In the winter of 1959, a group of 9 skilled hikers began a journey into the remote Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union. They were young, intelligent, strong, and highly trained. They carried journals, cameras, and detailed route plans. Their adventure was meant to be a final test of endurance, the kind of expedition only the most talented hikers attempted. But only days after entering the mountains, all 9 would be dead. When investigators reached their last campsite, they found a scene unlike anything they had ever seen. A tent sliced open from within, footprints leading away, barefoot on frozen ground, bodies scattered across the mountainside, some showing injuries that defied explanation, others with missing eyes or a missing tongue, and no clear answer as to why any of it happened. More than 60 years later, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the most disturbing unsolved mysteries in modern history, and perhaps the most famous unexplained expedition disaster ever recorded. Tonight, we go back to where it began. To understand the 9 hikers, their journey, their final hours, and the evidence that makes this case so impossibly strange. Chapter 1. Who were the 9 hikers? To understand this incident, we must first understand the people at the center of it. The Dyatlov group was made up of students and recent graduates from the Ural Polytechnic Institute. Many were studying engineering. Some were athletes. All were experienced in winter survival. Igor Dyatlov, the leader, was known for his discipline and careful planning. He built his own camping equipment. He studied weather patterns, and he had led multiple expeditions before. The others included Zina Kolmogorova, energetic and determined, a natural optimist; Rustem Slobodin, a long-distance runner known for his endurance; Lyudmila Dubinina, strong and outspoken, with a remarkable sense of focus; Yuri Doroshenko, tough and fearless, once chasing off a bear during a previous hike; Georgy Krivonishenko, playful, intelligent, known for lifting the group's spirits; Alexander Kolevatov, organized and quiet, always calm under pressure; Yuri Kivinay, radiation specialist and highly analytical; Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, athletic, confident, physically strong. This was not a group of beginners. They were among the best young hikers in the region. Everything about this expedition was carefully planned, from their route through the mountains to their daily routines. They even submitted official documents to the Soviet Sports Committee. This was meant to be a challenging but achievable journey. Nothing suggested danger. Not yet. Chapter 2. The journey begins. On January 27th, the team departed on their trek toward the distant mountain of Otorten. The early days were filled with routine progress. They took group photos, wrote cheerful diary entries, and documented everything. One of them wrote, "Everything is going well. The weather is good. Spirits are high." But the conditions quickly began to change. As they moved deeper into the wilderness, the temperature dropped. Winds strengthened, visibility worsened, and the terrain grew more difficult. On January 31st, they reached the base of the mountains, the last known point before their tragedy. Chapter 3. The final day. February 1st was the last day the team would be seen alive. Their goal was to cross through a narrow pass and reach a forested valley where they planned to make camp. But the weather turned against them. A snowstorm forced them off their planned route. Visibility dropped to nearly zero, and in that storm, they unknowingly traveled west toward the slopes of a mountain the native Mansi people called Kolatsiako, the Mountain of the Dead. By evening, the group decided to stop. But instead of descending into the forest where they would have shelter, they built their tent high on an open slope. Some believe this was a navigation mistake. Others think they intentionally camped there to practice slope camping for future expeditions. Whatever the reason, that decision placed them directly in harm's way. This tent would soon become the center of one of the strangest mysteries in Russian history. The search begins. The hikers were expected to return by February 12th. When they didn't, No one panicked at first, delays were common. But as days passed with no word, families grew worried. On February 20th, a formal search party was launched. What followed was one of the largest rescue operations the region had ever seen. Students, military personnel, and local Mansi tribesmen joined the search. On February 26th, a volunteer spotted something unusual in the snow. A tent, half collapsed, covered in frost, standing silently against the wind. He immediately knew something was wrong. The tent. Investigators reached the tent and were stunned. The tent was sliced open from the inside. Not a tear, a deliberate cut. Something, or someone, had caused the hikers to cut their way out. Inside, they found boots, jackets, food supplies, and personal belongings. Everything needed to survive the cold had been left behind. Footprints in the snow led downhill, some with socks, some barefoot, some showing signs of people walking slowly and carefully, not running. This was the first clue that something terrifying had happened, something strong enough to make 9 professional hikers flee into the night without their gear. Following the footprints, rescuers reached a small wooded area at the edge of the forest. There, near the remains of a small fire, lay the bodies of Yuri Doroshenko and Georgy Krivonishenko. They wore almost no clothing. Their hands were burned. The branches above them were broken, suggesting they had climbed the trees, possibly searching for the tent or trying to escape something. 3 more bodies, Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin, were found between the forest and the tent. Their position suggested they were attempting to crawl back uphill, desperately trying to return to shelter. The remaining 4 hikers were missing. 2 months later, after the snow melted, rescuers found the last group. They were deeper in the forest, inside a ravine, partially buried by snow. Their injuries were far more severe. Thibaut Brignol had massive skull trauma. Dubinina and Zolotaryov had rib fractures so violent that they should have left external wounds, yet their skin was intact. Dubinina's tongue and eyes were missing. Some clothing was radioactive. These were not simple hypothermia deaths. Something had happened here, something intense, violent, and unexplained. Even today, investigators struggle with key questions. Why did the hikers flee their tent without proper clothing? What caused such severe internal injuries? Why was radiation present on their clothes? Why were body parts missing? Why was the tent cut open from within? And most importantly, what exactly forced 9 trained hikers into a fatal situation? The official investigation failed to answer these questions. Theories. Over the decades, many explanations emerged. Avalanche theory, but the terrain showed no signs of one. Military weapons testing possible, given the secrecy of the era. Infrasound panic, a psychological reaction to wind-generated vibrations. Snow slab collapse, the current official explanation, but heavily debated. Radioactive contamination, unexplained by natural causes. Wild animal attack ruled out due to the lack of external wounds. Conflict within the group impossible due to the pattern of injuries. Each theory solves one part of the mystery, but none solve all of it. Based on evidence, investigators believe the following. Something startled the hikers inside the tent. They cut their way out and moved downslope, grouping together at the forest. Some attempted to build a fire. Others tried to return to the tent. The final group suffered traumatic injuries, likely while seeking shelter in the ravine. But what triggered this chain of events remains unknown. The environment was harsh, but not unfamiliar to them. The injuries were severe, but not consistent with a fall. The patterns were unusual and deeply unsettling. More than 60 years later, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the world's most enduring mysteries. Families still have no answers. Researchers still argue. Experts still debate what caused the hikers' deaths. But the truth remains buried under snow and time. 9 young hikers entered the mountains with hope, discipline, and adventure. What they encountered in the darkness of that night may never be fully understood, but their story remains a reminder. There are still places on Earth, places even the most experienced explorers cannot predict, where nature fear, and the unknown collide in ways that defy explanation. And the Dyatlov Pass incident is one of those places.